The MVPs of the National Football League 2023 and 2024 will be going at it in week 1 of the NFL season.
The Purple Friday edition of the season begins. Let's get it started.
There are plenty of key storylines and matchups to watch in this game that could define the game. The Ultimate NFL pregame show starts right now with the Locked on Ravens Squad Show.
Rise and shine, it's the Ravens Squad. Everything Baltimore Ravens every week. Covering all the big hits and game-changing plays from the heart of Charm City. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Flock together and squad up. The Ravens Squad Show starts now.
What's going on, Flock Nation? Welcome to another episode of the Ravens Squad Show. We are a little over 72 hours away until kickoff, where the Ravens and Bills meet for a rematch of the divisional round of the postseason. It is going to be a slobber knocker. I can't wait. It's one of those games that I've been anticipating since the schedule came out. I'm sure Ravens fans will agree with me. Welcome again to the Ravens Squad Show. It is Kevin Oestreicher and Kadri Ismail here, joining me here on a Thursday. That has been, I don't know if I've ever remember a game that's been more anticipated than this matchup between two MVPs. I mean, this is going to be one of the best games of the season, in my opinion, and it's only week 1. In this episode, we're going to be talking about the matchups for the Bills game, keys to the game, and the predictions for Sunday night football between the Ravens and the Bills. I want to start with matchups here, Kevin. We're going to start with the offense against the defense, meaning the Ravens offense versus the Bills defense. What are some matchups that you see here that gets you excited, or maybe something that has you a bit concerned about this game?
Yeah, I think there are a couple. One that I'm particularly looking at is the Bills cornerback 2 position versus, I'm going to say, Rashod Bateman or DeAndre Hopkins or Zay Flowers, that Ravens wide receiver unit, where the Bills are a little banged up in that secondary right now, particularly at the cornerback spot. Tre'Davious White, who is an old friend, obviously, from last year, but is obviously known more for his Bills tenure before that. He has not practiced for 2 straight days on Wednesday and Thursday with a groin injury. And then you have, if it's not Trey White, it's Dorian Strong, who's a rookie 6th rounder, Jamarcus Ingram, who is inexperienced. So that cornerback 2 spot is looking mighty weak for the Bills, it feels like. And obviously Trey White has one more day to put together at least a limited practice. We will see. But I feel like with Baltimore's receiving room, I think it's the best receiving room the Ravens have had in the Lamar Jackson era. Christian Benford, their other cornerback, who is their star, he went from limited to full, so it looks like he will be able to be on the field on Sunday night. But obviously one player sometimes can't save you. And with the Ravens having guys like, let's just eliminate it. Let's just do it for the exercise I'm going to do here. Benford and Flowers, put them off to the side. I feel really good that if Trey White can't go, and even if he was able to go, clearly he'd be limited in some way, shape, or form. I feel really good about Rashod Bateman, DeAndre Hopkins making an impact, especially because, and we'll get into the situations with Isaiah Likely and Patrick Ricard, if the Ravens choose to go with more wide receivers on the field at certain points in the game or lighter personnel, I think that Bateman or Hopkins could be in for a big one, especially if that inexperience shows through for some of those Bills corners.
I think it's interesting, too, because of the fact that they went heavy with corner, and Mad Max, as they like to call him, who ran a blazing 40 time. You saw how he came up with a knee injury. And so, yes, to Kevin's point, there is a thin line between the health of their depth and then also what can Todd Monken and the Ravens receiving core do to give themselves the advantage over basically a secondary that, yes, is a little long in the tooth and white, but you also got to respect Benford and what he brings to the table. Extremely talented corner and really known for just being very savvy when it comes to punching the ball out, as well as his coverage skills. So I think what we saw last year in the playoffs, we saw Bateman get off, do an excellent job with some awesome route combinations, getting open, scores a touchdown, the whole 9 yards. But we also saw, Lamar Jackson and company throwing up interceptions because of miscommunication. So this is going to be one of those matchups where who blinks first. All that we know of when it comes to this first game is that this is the best that you're going to have health-wise when it comes to the entire National Football League. In other words, you start off at training camp at 100%. You might get down and be fortunate to leave training camp around 70%. If you can leave training camp between 65, 70%, okay. Well, you go into that first week of the season, I mean, you're living large, 65, 70%. Anything less than that, then it's just a battle of attrition. So I think what we're going to see is we're going to see some fresh legs out there, even though, the injury report is what it is. It just means that the guys aren't 100%. So I love that matchup. I love the fact that you're going to see who can really show out and show up when it comes to the receivers and the Bills secondary.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough matchup. It's going to be interesting to see. Quick reminder that today's episode is sponsored by PrizePicks. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. I'm interested in Isaiah Likely and Pat Ricard. Kevin, you mentioned it. Looks like they're both not going to play. They both didn't practice here up until Thursday. They were a big part of the Ravens' win in Week 4 last year, especially Pat Ricard with that block that really launched Derrick Henry up the sidelines for the 87-yard touchdown run. Q, are you concerned about the loss of Isaiah Likely and Pat Ricard in terms of the run game? We know that the passing game is probably going to be a factor here, but I think they want to get started with the run game, no? Or do you think they'll just stay with that 11 personnel throughout the game?
Oh, no. This is a team that wants to establish the run. You're going into hostile territory. The Bills, yes, in the playoffs, and full disclosure, I am watching the Bills game as we speak. Why? Because my mind is getting right. See that brow frown right there? Yeah. So when you look at this game and you look at what they did, they started off running the ball. They ran it effectively. The times where they passed the ball, it was a lot of Lamar giving some play action. There was a ton of flow. But because they were so successful running the football, we're not even talking about Week 4. We're just talking strictly playoffs. That's where you saw them take advantage of the throws down the field to Isaiah Likely, to technically, even though he dropped it, to Derrick Henry. I think this is a game in which, without Isaiah Likely in there, it's going to change the dynamics slightly. I think what Patrick Ricard brings to the table and what we saw in Week 4 was just his dominance and being able to get at the point of attack and pound whomever that linebacker was, that safety was, in the hole. So when you talk about this gamesmanship of back and forth, and when you look at the bigger picture of what Todd Monken likes to do, my God, man, like those are two big key pieces. Now, we already knew that Isaiah Likely more than likely wasn't going to play. I think the Pat Ricard one is the big one that really is like, oh boy, a little telling. So Charlie Kolar, ton of reps in training camp. He has the chemistry that is needed when it comes to Lamar Jackson and him. I think at the same time, we also know what he can do from a blocking aspect of things, very effective. So I think, it lessens the blow somewhat. And make no mistake about it, I don't think that this game, from a weather aspect of things, is going to be nowhere near what it was in the divisional round, where you needed to have that physicality. Physicality is going to be needed. It's just different when it comes to a weather game. So Charlie Kolar, absolutely, I believe he's going to have a huge role, especially when it comes to that blocking element of it all. And we're also talking about how Isaiah Likely is not going to be involved in a passing attack because he's probably going to be inactive.
Yeah, I mean, look, you got to assume at this point that those two are not going to play. I know Q, even Sam, we've talked about it here on the squad show a bunch, and even just respectively on Locked On Ravens individually. Likely is a loss. Ricard is a loss, but they have enough talent to overcome it. And I agree with Q. I think that they should establish the run, establish it early. Just because you probably don't have these guys doesn't mean that you want to move away from what your identity is. Now, the Ravens have the personnel to overcome those losses. Q obviously mentioned Charlie Kohler, and that's going to be a guy who I think plays a huge role. I agree in this game. I think, though, what I want to see, I would love it if they just came out in first play, Mark Andrews, boom, just get right off the bat, just boom, get Mark involved early, keep him involved often. And then the beautiful thing about the run game, and this obviously it's with record or without it, is if you can establish the run early on the Bills run defense, who, by the way, they invested in their run defense. Yes, they were kind of middle of the pack to not great last season in terms of just very basic metrics in that regard. If you can establish it early, you can work play action off of that really seamlessly. And I think not having Isaiah there does hurt in the play action game, but Mark is a factor in there. You can use Zay and Rashod and DeAndre in that regard too. You could even do little dump offs in the backfield. The guys like Derrick Henry, I would love to see them get their running backs involved. We know they love those little wheel routes with Justice Hill up the sideline. Maybe that's what they can do a little bit in this game. We've talked about this all offseason, guys. The Ravens roster is so deep where unless they're losing Lamar Jackson, which knock on wood, that doesn't happen, they have the depth to overcome. Now, if it gets absolutely crazy, then we probably have to have it for conversation. But this is another one of those cases. I think Ricardo is such an interesting case study because we're going to kind of see what they're feeling in terms of if they do bring up Lucas Scott from the practice squad and have him essentially be that Patrick Ricard replacement for the week. Or do they really just want to roll with what they have and figure it out that way? That, to me, will maybe dictate a little bit more of what the game plan is. But I think that Todd Monken made a really good point, and it was a pretty obvious one that's just like, play mistake-free football. Don't commit penalties. Don't turn the ball over. If the Ravens, we can talk about who's playing, what personnel looks. If they give the Bills opportunities like they did in that divisional round game, probably not going to go very well. So the number one priority on my list is to make sure that they do not turn that ball over and play a clean game.
Yep, that is exactly what I believe needs to happen. And somebody who was not in that game that is going to be in this game is Joey Bosa, who the Bills acquired in free agency. He's going to be lined up across most likely Roger Rosengarten as well as Daniel Falele. Kevin, are you nervous about that matchup? I know Joey Bosa isn't the same guy he once was in his time in the Chargers, but he seems like he's a guy that can potentially wreak havoc on this offensive line.
Yeah, Joey Bosa is really talented. And I think that, again, it's not to quite the same extent, but he and Jaire Alexander kind of, I think, are in the same conversation boat where when healthy, Joey Bosa is a really, really good pass rusher. The issue is he hasn't been able to stay healthy. So I obviously talked about why the Ravens were able to get Jaire at the price point that they did. And while the Bills don't have a Lamar Jackson connection with Joey Bosa like the Ravens did with Jaire, I still think that's going to be a really important matchup to watch. And that whole Bills D-line, honestly, like he got Ed Oliver and Greg Rousseau. Like you have talented players. I think obviously the one that I'm going to be watching the most outside of that, because I think Rosengarten in year two it's going to be a big swing position for the Ravens there. If he can really continue to build off of momentum and figure things out, their offense will probably be lights out again. But if he struggles and he kind of hits that second year wall, which we've seen players do before, could be a little bit of a longer season. But on the interior, I'm curious. I mean, Daniel Falele has been the conversation point, and we know Ed Oliver and those guys that the Bills have some big guys up front. I know Oliver himself is more of a, pass rushing specialist type guy, but he's really good. In my opinion, I think that Bills D-line versus the Ravens O-line is a huge matchup. Yeah.
Interesting because I'm watching a game. One of the plays we saw where Linderbaum actually got punked and pushed back into the backfield. It tripped up Lamar Jackson. And again, it's one of those plays where you're like, oh boy, that's not good. But yet, Lamar does Lamar things and throws one out to Isaiah Likely. Then all of a sudden, Andre Miller, like he makes a great play and now they're off and running again. My point is that it's those little moments in the game that you don't want to have build up. Anthony Miller, excuse me. You don't want to have it add up. You don't want to have those negative plays add up. And I think for this Bills D-line, I think they felt like they really took it to the Ravens when it came to certain pressures, as Mark Andrews has a drop. And it was in the literally second quarter when the game was 7-7. This is something that, again, we saw Derrick Henry drop. We saw Mark Andrews drop. Clearly, we know the 2-point conversion and the fumble, but that's something where this one in the first quarter, you don't really remember. That's why I'm watching this game. And that's why you see the brow. Yeah. Do my homework. So that's where I think, matchup wise, much as we talk about Joey Bosa, I think that, name wise, that dude and well deserving, but I think it's a different Joey Bosa than what we've seen from previous years. I think the main thing is that D-line is pretty formidable regardless of it being Joey Bosa. And oh, by the way, Lamar Jackson, the poor snap, the whole 9 yards, now it's a turnover. Could you imagine if you got a chance to not have Linderbaum trip up Lamar Jackson, not have on this particular drive where you had Mark Andrews drop the ball. So you had the drop ball, you had the fumble by Lamar because of a high snap. Those are the mistakes that cost you. I think that in this environment, which is going to be crazy hostile, you're going to need to play mistake-free.
Oh, man. All those memories are coming back to me about all the things that went wrong in the first half. The Ravens definitely got, I wouldn't say out physical, but kind of out physical in the first half. They turned it up in the second half, but it was a little too late for them in regards to coming back as they were literally 2 points short from getting it done. Well, when we come back, we'll touch on the opposite, the Ravens defense against Josh Allen and those Buffalo Bills, that offense. We're going to talk about the matches we like. More to come here next on the Ravens Squad Show. It's almost the weekend. Time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who's Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order. These players deliver when it mattered most. Let's break it down. For the Baltimore Ravens, my player of choice would be Ruben Lowry because he delivered in a big way all fourth quarter, got it done, made sure that he was one of the players that were going to get into this 53-man roster, and he did just that. And just like Ruben Lowry delivered for the Baltimore Ravens, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays with DoorDash Streaks. You save every Saturday your order, stack it up all season, and you can save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period through 11/18. That's November 18th. Mazda crafts cars for those who choose to do more than simply move. They follow what moves them every time they drive. And that's what makes Mazda stand out. They go beyond safety, style, and performance to deliver a driving experience that feels alive in every detail. Mazda offers more than safety. It's won more 2025 IIHA Top Safety Pick awards than anyone else as of August 2025. It's the small details that make the big plays. And just like there's more to every player, there's more to Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. We are back here with the Ravens Squad Show. Again, we're available twice a week. That's on Thursdays now. And after every Ravens game, we'll have a post-game show following all of the watch-alongs and post-game stuff with Kevin Oestreicher and the Locked On Ravens podcast. So lots of Ravens content for you as we get ready for week 1 of the NFL season. We touched on the Ravens defense. Now we're going to touch on, we touched on the Ravens offense, I should say. Now we're going to touch on the Ravens defense, as the Ravens did a lot during the offseason to bring in guys to come in and try and compete for that championship. Kevin, I'll start with you. With this matchup, what are some of the key matchups you're seeing here in this Ravens defense who are, they just look so formidable against the offense and the Bills that is much to be desired as well?
Yeah, a big one to me. And that there are honestly a few that I could go with here, but I'm going to kind of steal the thunder from your question in the first part of the show. And I'm going to say Spencer Brown against whoever's lined up against him. That the Bills tackle. And then is that Odafe Owe? Is that Kyle Van Noy? Is that Tavius Robinson? Q, is that Mike Green? Maybe it could be. That to me, I think, is where I want to see the Ravens improve consistency this season. We know the Ravens were second in sacks last year, only behind the Broncos. They had 54. The Broncos had 63, if I'm not mistaken. But their advanced metrics were very all over the place in terms of pass rush win rate and pressure rate and everything, where they were really good in some areas and not so good in others. And we kind of saw last year where the Ravens would explode for like 7 sacks in a game and then not be heard from in that pass rush department for like 2 straight games. And I think, to me, starting this game, and look, I'm not asking for them to get 7 sacks in this game or like 10 sacks in this game, but consistent pressure on Josh Allen is one of the best things you can do. Now, the thing with these 2 quarterbacks is that they're the 2 best in the league, in my opinion, at taking pressure and saying, that's funny, I'm going to go over here and make a play you've never seen before. So it's not just winning the rep against the offensive lineman. It's also about getting I mean, how many times, and I hate to pick on him, but for Jadeveon Clowney, how many times did we see Jadeveon Clowney in 2023 get to the quarterback and then just like almost have a sack? It felt like over and over and over again. And that wasn't just Clowney, by the way. It was the whole defense, it felt like. But that's something that you can't do. And Josh Allen talked about this when, he talked to the Bills media. Don't give these guys opportunities. Do not extend play. Do not let them extend plays. Do not let them get yards off of penalties. Like, if Spencer Brown has a tough game and Josh is feeling pressure consistently, it adds up. Josh can do something with pressure and he can make something happen out of nothing, but it adds up and it speeds up that internal clock and will honestly mess with the Bills' game plan a little bit. So I'm hoping that the Ravens edge rushers can have a big game in this one.
So if the Ravens edge rushers are going to have a big game, then that means, as I am looking at it with furrowed brow and a little bit ticked off right now because Buffalo's up 14-7, part of that 14-7 is Tavius Robinson not setting the edge and the running game getting going for the Bills. I think that's really blaring. You say Brown was like doing some work against the Ravens D-line, and the entire D-line really did not step up. So while, yes, you absolutely want your pass rushers to get to Josh Allen, you will have a long day if you do not stop the run. Matabike was getting pushed around. Travis Jones was really a no-show, part of the no-show. You could say his ankle, whatever. You out there playing. We're just looking at pure your talent. Nothing to do with personality, none of that. You ain't step up. When it comes to the other guys in the rotation, David Ojabo, gosh, one time he was sitting there and he was getting pancake blocked. So overall, O-line is their strength. Big boys up front. We know that. And we also know that this D-line, rushers included, it has to be a situation where you bring your big boy hat. You're on the road. You know that hard hat type blue collar game is going to be in week 1. You already kind of knew what you needed to do when it was week 4 last year. Well, let's look like week 4 rather than like we saw in the divisional round where they just methodically went down the football field. Josh Allen can throw the ball. Yeah, we got all that. Make him one-dimensional, and it's a big difference.
Yep, that was a difference in week 4 in the divisional round. It just felt like the Ravens were just pushed around. The Bills did whatever they wanted in that first half. And, stopping the run will be the name of the game. One other player that wasn't involved other than Joey Bosa in this contest in the divisional round was one Malachi Starks, rookie safety. He is going to be in his first NFL game on Sunday Night Football. Q, do you think there's a chance that the Bills will use that to their advantage and potentially target him in the early goings of this football game?
Yeah, so from a matchup aspect of things, this is where it gets interesting. Typically with rookies, you kind of can hide them, if you will. And I think when you look at like a Nate Wiggins, obviously, really didn't see him get taken advantage of. Maybe in the Eagles game, there was a little bit of a taken advantage of, but for the most part, he held form. I think because you have so many veterans, Malachi, and what I saw also in training camp from a cerebral standpoint, Malachi has that cerebral mindset. I don't think it's going to be a situation where Malachi is going to be lost in space and the game is going to be too big for him. He's played big-time football. He's been in huge environments. The crowd noise is nothing like he had in Athens. So he's gonna be like, oh, this is the NFL. This is Bills Mafia. Ooh, I'm shaking in my boots. I think he's more than prepared for the awe factor of the crowd and all the things. And the fact that he's going to have, Kyle Hamilton as his running mate next to him. Obviously, you're looking across, you see 44. You're like, oh, all right, bet. You look over on the other side, you see number 2, or you're going to see Jaire come in the game, depending upon what their situation is going to be looking like. I don't really feel like this is a Josh Allen exploiting him. Could it be? And when I say could it be, is it a scenario where, boom, Rashod Bateman was like balling in the first half?
He was.
By the way.
He was.
I digress. Got the brow furrow. The homeboy was having a game, like taking advantage. Big post right here, going down the field, and Lamar was just dotting them up. Lamar didn't have his best game, but Lamar was showing you why, he's who he is. Mm-hmm. I digress. So when it comes to the secondary play, it could be a play action type of a moment, but I really don't see them, because of the veteranness, them getting to just isolating on Malachi Starks.
Yeah, it's going to be difficult to do so. I think they're going to do a good job of, one, protecting him, but there might be instances where, again, we're trying to stop the run, trying to get things going. They might put Kyle Hamilton in the box and leave him alone. I think he's savvy enough. I watched him at Georgia. I think he's savvy enough to deal with that. And the Bills don't really have the receivers to really exploit him, at least in my opinion. But we'll see. Another guy, Trenton Simpson, who I think needs to step up in this game because they'll need to stop the run. I think he's good at stopping the run, but they may take advantage of him a little bit, or try to initially, based on his tape from last year. Kevin, how do you feel about Trenton Simpson coming into this game, first time back as a full-time starter? You think he got what it takes to get the job done?
I hope so. I mean, it wasn't looking too good after those first couple preseason games. Now, he did what he was supposed to do in that final one against the Commanders, but again, who was really playing for either team in that game? So I think when you're looking at Trenton, the Ravens, as I've mentioned before, they're not married to having 2 inside linebackers on the field at the same time. Now, of course, when the Bills want to go heavier, and I think the Ravens will match the Bills in that, obviously, Trenton will be on the field. He has the athleticism, the sideline to sideline speed, but we've just seen his inexperience shine through too many times. And, when that happens and you're a contending team, you don't really have time for that. So he's not able to work through his mistakes and go through that. It's all right. Go to the bench. That's it. See you later. So you're, again, thrusting him into that role. And I just hope so, because the Ravens are in a position where if it's not Trenton, you have to rely on a rookie in Teddy Buchanan, who had his ups and downs during the preseason. Maybe it's a Jake Hummel, but he's more of a special teams guy. By the end, maybe Jay Higgins just surprises us all and takes over this job by the time the season is over. They're 2 different players in a sense, but Trenton's going to have the first crack at it. But look, if it's anything like week 1 against the Chiefs last year, we saw the Ravens get beat in the slot over and over and over again by Rashee Rice, by Xavier Worthy. I mean, and that was Roquan, that was Trenton, that was everybody. So you need to have guys that can cover. Roquan can do it. Roquan is an underrated cover linebacker. He just had so much on his plate. And I know both, we've talked about that here. And we saw over the second half of the year when everything was kind of squared away, Roquan got his mojo back. I think that if Trenton, being inexperienced, is going to overexert Roquan again, it's just not worth it. Like it's just not worth it. Find a guy that can ease up on Roquan's plate. He's a guy that you need to be at his tip-top performance, his peak performance. And, I think that whether it's covering Dalton Kincaid or maybe it's James Cook out of the backfield, or maybe Ty Johnson gets some third down work for them, Trenton will have some level of a role to play, but hopefully it's one where he'll be successful and not, stress out the defense too much.
Yeah.
See, that concerns me because Dalton Kincaid is a baller. And, oh, my gosh, you just gave me flat. Now you're going to make me go ahead and look back on the Chiefs game last year, week 1.
Your brow's going to be double furrowed now.
Yeah. I have a permanent frown. I have to go get some Botox or something crazy. Bruh, like, when you look at Malachi, he's going to be playing so off the ball. That's where I'm like, okay, you can put in a nickel package where you're going to have some veterans covering guys. Hey, everything's going to be good. You talking about Trent Simpson, I mean, that's like up closer. It's a lot more scheme that you can, scheme against with a Dalton Kincaid, with the running game, with some misdirection, the quick passing game. It's all those little details that potentially can derail you. So, yes, to Kevin's point, he really didn't show much until that final preseason game. Hopefully it is a trending upward element where he won't be out of position and he will be okay.
I really hope so. I heard that my mic is a little quiet now. Is this better? You guys hear me better now, or is it how's it going?
I'm glad the chat was saying, because you were kind of whispering. You didn't really want to you didn't want to give away any like details to the Buffalo Mafia.
Is it better? Is it better? It wasn't much of a difference to me. Is it better now for Sam Q?
Yeah, can you hear me better now, or should I put it up a little bit?
I can hear you better now.
Okay, I just want to make sure, because I know last time I was coming in hot, and I've been, yeah. How is it now? It's better now? We're good?
Good, Tim. See, Tim and I, we're on the same page. We want the Bills Mafia to know that we sitting here scouting and breaking it all down.
Oh, man.
Yeah, Tim, tell him, Tim.
I've been trying my best to reserve my excitement for Bills Mafia. I know Bills Mafia gets on my case a little bit about my MVP talk, but it is what it is. When we come back, we'll talk about the keys to the game, because the Ravens and Bills, they had some history with each other 2 times last year, so they know each other pretty well. We'll dive into what the keys of the game should be, at least our opinions on it next here on the Ravens Squad Show. The NFL season is almost here, and FanDuel is making sure you are ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits however you like to bet, player props, building the same game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. So, are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. All right, we are back here with the Ravens Squad Show. Again, we are available twice a week, Thursdays, and after every single Ravens contest, post-game live edition show with myself, KO, and Q. All right, well, Ravens Squad Show also has a little bit of Locked On Ravens as well, as we are here 5 times a week. And some days on Saturdays and Sundays, depending on the news, lots of Ravens news during the offseason. Hopefully, not as many news cycles to give Kevin a little bit of a break this NFL season, as we've been very busy. But nice to talk some football now that we are just a few hours away from the Ravens contest. Keys to the game, because the Ravens played this game, I think, in the division round at least, a little differently than they did the first go-round. I wonder, Kevin, give me one of your keys to victory for the Ravens in this contest.
I feel like I cheated and said this is like my first answer for the turnover. So, all right, I'll try to be different and give another one. A key to me, and I guess it's kind of in line with what I was saying earlier, time of possession, I generally try to avoid just like, oh, hey, whichever team has the ball for longer is going to win. But when you have a star quarterback on the other side, keep the ball out of his hands. I'm not saying do the whole Greg Roman 15 minutes per possession thing and then all you end up with is a field goal. That's not good. But keep the ball out of Josh Allen's hands. Don't let him hold the ball. Don't let him tire out your defense. If you're the Ravens offense, another big thing is not only converting on third down, but converting in the red zone. These are the top 2 red zone offenses in the league last season. The Ravens at number 1 and the Bills at number 2. Converting touchdowns down there is so important, especially in a game that I think we all are in agreement is going to be somewhat close. I think it's, it's not going to be a blowout. I don't think we're going to have like week 4 last year. I think it just with the emotions and everything. Hey, if it is a blowout for the Ravens, I'll take it. I'll take it. But to me, if you have to throw Tyler Loop out there 4 times and he has a good game, he converts on all 4 kicks and that's all good. Like, great. That's awesome. But I would want to see those happen from like 40 or 50 when you like stall out maybe, as opposed to getting to like the 2-yard line on 1st and 2 and not convert for a touchdown. I don't want to see like chip shot 29 yarders, right? you can win games doing that, but it becomes extremely hard when your opponent takes advantage of those opportunities. And I'm not saying that Buffalo will or won't, but if you're the Ravens, one thing you can do is convert on your opportunities, put the pressure on the Bills, and make sure that they have to also go down and score touchdowns. Don't let them off the hook. By the way, speaking of special teams, Tyler Bass, their kicker, was actually downgraded at practice. He did not practice on Thursday after being limited on Wednesday. They signed Matt Prater to the practice squad. So it looks like he could be their kicker for Sunday night, which obviously Tyler Bass has been kicking in Buffalo for a while. Buffalo, I know it's not January Buffalo, but it's still not necessarily an easy place to play. So that's another area too. Like, force the Bills, if they do have to use a new kicker here, to put him out on the field instead of, like, don't put Josh in situations where it's like 1st and goal from the 1. He's just going to push that thing in there, and that's going to be the rest. Make the Bills work for their points, tire them out, exhaust them, and then by the end of the 60 minutes, hopefully the Ravens, with their depth, will be able to, like, the Bills are huffing and puffing, like, man, played all these snaps, and the Ravens are like, oh, this is cool. I've only played like 3/4 worth. We're good. Like, that's what I want to see.
Interesting, because keys wise, as we look at this game, or I'm looking at the game and I'm doing my homework, I agree with what Kevin is saying. Like, man, the fast start, the clean game, it could be a close game, but we don't want to see Tyler Luke. We absolutely know that if he's kicking extra points, awesome. But if it does come to a scenario where he is going to kick a game winner, man, I mean, okay, here we go. Like,
yeah.
Jordan, both of y'all, give him encouragement.
Yep.
Tell him about the routine. Randy Brown, do something to help him be ready. Okay. I think big picture is it's about them playing their brand of football, which is running the ball, which is then Lamar Jackson taking advantage of, as we saw with the way Bateman was cooking them, which we saw obviously won't be Isaiah Likely, but it should very well be Charlie Kolar. We know there's a redemption game that needs to happen with Derrick Henry and with Mark Andrews. Both guys didn't play their best in the playoffs. We know that. These are redemption moments for both players. They are, well, one we know is a lock for the Hall of Fame. The other one we know is a lock for the Ring of Honor. But both guys need that redemption moment. So I think this is, in so many ways, offensively, strong start, consistent start, better play.
Yeah, that would be fantastic if it goes down like that. Ravens flock, let me know. Is this Tyler Loop's dad on the podcast right now, Steve? Steve Loop, let me know.
I guess Steve can answer that for himself, I guess.
Go ahead and answer that. Be honest. Is this Tyler Loop's dad? I think it might be. I got a source that says that Steve likes to jump in on here sometimes and talk some Ravens football.
Love Steve.
Yeah. If it is, then we're rooting for your boy to get there. Okay, so he says hi there. So I'm assuming that is his dad. So,
Yeah.
Appreciate you for joining the show. Your son has a big game coming up. Yeah. So, I think that the Ravens indeed will. I mean, I don't know if it's going to be close or not. I don't know. We'll talk about it in the next segment of the show. But what I will say is, if it comes down to Tyler Loop being the guy that has to kick, hopefully Nick Moore and Jordan Stout get that guy ready. It's going to be such a huge. And speaking of Nick Moore, I think this guy just hears his name and just shows up every single time I bring his name up. It's insane. Welcome to the show, Nick. How you doing?
Hey, how's it going, guys? Thanks for having me out here.
Yeah, man. It was good.
I'm very proud. We joke with this when Nick popped on Locked On Ravens, but this is where it happened. We've officially made it past the minute mark with the camera on the Locked On Ravens pod show.
Locked in, hey.
He's got
Locked in, boys.
Yeah,
I got it fixed.
Yeah, and we have Tyler's dad is in here with us, Nick. So we're chatting it up about Tyler and the whole 9 yards.
Oh, nice,
so.
Nice. What's up, Steve? That's cool.
Let us ask you this, Nick. Obviously, big picture wise, this is week 1. This isn't going to win you the Super Bowl, nor is it going to lose you the Super Bowl, but it is a measuring stick game. How do you feel? How do you see your boys as far as the week of practice and just the mental preparation of going up to Buffalo to week one and potential victory?
Obviously we've had this circled on the calendar for a while because, multiple reasons. First game of the year, but we got a little bad taste in our mouth from how the season ended last year in Buffalo. So I feel really good about this, man. We've had a great camp. I thought we played really well throughout the preseason. A lot of guys got a lot of action, young guys on special teams, second team guys on defense, offense, getting some really good action and got some really good experience in the game. So I feel really confident about this. We've had a great week of preparation. Guys just feel so locked in. Everything feels on point, man. It's just been a lot of fun to be at work lately. So I'm excited to get this rolling, man. I mean, the first game of the year, there's a lot of things going on. People are making predictions, doing all that stuff. And for us, like, what a better way, what better way to start the season than going up against the Buffalo Bills? Arguably one of the best teams in the AFC, has been a constant rival of us with Lamar and Josh and all the stuff that goes with that. But it's just two great football teams, man. It's going to be a great game. I'm excited for it. It's going to be a big challenge for us on special teams. And I know offense, defense, they're going to have challenges as well. So it's going to be a lot of fun, man. It's like you want to go ahead and get this one out of the way, get this one going and get this one under our belt. So it's going to be a fun match.
Here's a question that is kind of it's interesting. I guess I didn't realize, but I also recognize when you're on the road as a long snapper, especially in a hostile environment like, the Bills Highmark Stadium, what is it like as far as noise and just the timing and rhythm for you from a punting standpoint, as well as snapping it to Jordan to get the extra point or field goal?
The noise is definitely a factor. We get a similar vibe at home. Like if we score a touchdown, obviously the crowd's going crazy, or for, it's a little bit quieter on long field goals. But honestly, for me, like, it's kind of like white noise at this point. Like I've been doing it for a while. And like, I feel like when it's so loud, and like we practice, like today we were kicking field goals and they had the music blasting and like, you can't even hear your own thoughts. You can't talk to the guy next to you. And that's how it's going to be, in Buffalo. It's going to be loud, especially if we're going out for a field goal and they're trying to rattle us and do all that. But for me, it kind of just clears my mind a little bit, because I can't hear like all the guys on the defense or like, anything going on. It just kind of centers my focus, and like, it really just kind of dials in. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Biker Boys, but there's like a scene where he's like, he's doing the race and the screen like cuts out and it's like blurry and all he can see is the finish line. And like, for me, that's kind of how I get, man. It gets so loud in there. Like all I can see and focus on is what my task is. And like for field goal, I'm looking at Jordan's hand, and like, it just kind of hyper focuses me on that. And, it ends up helping me out. And I think, I think over my career, I've done fairly well on the road, and I feel good about it just because we prepare, Harbs' guys preparing for that kind of stuff. So I'm excited. It's always fun going on the road, man, going to enemy territory. It's just you and the 53 guys and the coaches and whoever the other guys they bring versus everybody else, man. There might be a handful of fans in the stands, but, 95% of those guys are rooting for the Buffalo Bills. So it's always a lot of fun.
I'm actually curious along those lines, and I guess after this we'll head into the break. But
yeah,
how do you feel like? And look, I know Ravens fans, they're from all over, they travel all over. I mean, do you see like in a lot of these places like a huge contingent of like Ravens fans when you go on the road, and like it's apparent even at some places that they even take over stadiums at times? Like what's it like to see them travel and like go out and support and whatnot?
Dude, we got the best fans in the National Football League. I mean, my aunt and uncle, they live out in Tucson, Arizona, and they're a part of this like Ravens flock, Arizona. And we went out for preseason like 3 or 4 years ago in 2022, and my aunt showed up with like all her posse from like the Facebook group or whatever. And I mean, they're everywhere we go. You see them all over the place. It honestly feels a lot to me like when I played at Georgia, man. We traveled so well. Like fans were crazy. They're all over the place. And I think the Ravens our fans are just like that, man. They absolutely live and die by us. They love us and we love them. And they always bring a little bit of extra for us on the road. And it's always a lot of fun to have them.
That's awesome.
That is awesome. We are going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk to Nick more about this and get ready for this Sunday night football game. I'm sure Nick is excited as everybody else. Maybe we get some predictions. I won't put Nick on the spot, but definitely get some predictions for KO and Q. And let's see if Nick wants to chime in as well next year on the Ravens Squad Show. We are back here in the Ravens Squad Show with Kevin Oestreicher, Kadri Ismail, and Nick Moore joining us here in the final segment of the show. Less than 72 hours away from Ravens football. I'm very excited about it. We're going to talk about predictions for this game, but before we do, let's have some more questions for Nick as you get ready to see. I have a question that I want to impose on you before we get started. Nick, it is going to be a crazy day for Tyler Loop. His first start, Sunday Night Football. We kind of talked about it with Malachi Starks, but there will be situations where Tyler Loop will be the main focus of everybody watching. Have you talked to him about the butterflies that come with playing his first NFL game, or are you just letting him get himself ready for it and just be there if you need him?
We've definitely talked. I think Tyler's done a great job of getting himself ready for this moment. He puts in tireless work. I mean, that he's a perfectionist on the practice field. He's honestly been great to work with, and he's really matured a lot since I first met him back in May. And I think he's done everything he can possibly do to put himself in the best position to do well and succeed this weekend. You know, obviously playing in your first game is very tough. Mine was COVID Wednesday night game against the Pittsburgh Steelers, and it was a whole bunch of stuff that went into that. And it was quiet, though. It was weird, eerily quiet out there. But I think Tyler's going to be locked in. I think he's going to be focused. Honestly, for him, I can't wait for him to get this opportunity because he's done so well in practice. He did great in the preseason. I mean, drilled that 61-yarder in Washington. This is just, it's the first one. He's going to obviously have some pregame jitters, but luckily for him, he gets to do some kickoff stuff. Hopefully we open the game with the kickoff and he's able to get that first play out of the way. But it's going to be a lot of fun for him, and I'm excited to see what he's able to do this year.
Is it a scenario, because I know when I would talk to Justin and obviously he would, kind of get into it with Pittsburgh, the first half versus second half, the way the grass was, with the Three Rivers or up in Cleveland. Are you talking to Tyler from an esoteric standpoint about the turf and what the synthetic grass is going to be like in Buffalo, in early September? Or is that just like, hey, once we get there, we'll worry about that when we arrive at the stadium?
We've been prepping to kick on turf. I believe, don't quote me on this, I'm not 100% sure, but I think Arizona's turf field. I'm not quite sure, but I feel like he's had a decent amount of experience. I mean, honestly, my only experience in Buffalo, the field was frozen, so it's really hard to get a gauge on. The footing was not good, so it's really hard to really give him any pointers on what the field's going to be like. Obviously, we're going to kick on some turf tomorrow. We've kicked on turf several times over the last few weeks, getting him ready for this game because we know that we have this coming up, so we want to try to practice on the same environment that we're going to play in on Sunday. So he'll be ready to rock and roll, man. I think at the end of the day, if he just sticks with his fundamentals and continues to do the things that we've been working on, it doesn't matter where he's kicking, he's going to be successful.
Here's another thing that I think from a special teams aspect that is kind of underrated is the art of the punt return. And it looks like LeJohntay Wester is the guy. So, I mean, that's a hostile environment too for, your kicker / also your returner. What are your thoughts in regards to what he can do?
I think LeJohntay is special. What that return he had against Indy, I mean, that was something serious right there. That was one of the better returns I've seen in the NFL. And I think, we kind of – the idea that we teach is like just get the first down. Like not every return in the NFL is going to go to the end zone. It's really hard to score a touchdown. 11 guys got to be doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing, and he still has to make one guy miss because it's 10 on 11. And so it's really difficult to grade it on like whether or not he's going to score a lot of touchdowns. But I think what he does really well is he catches the ball really well and he gets upfield. He gets those yards, those important yards for our offense. I mean, the difference between us starting on the 20 and the 35 is a huge difference. So, for LeJounte, I think this is going to be a test for sure. And, for anybody going into that environment, I mean, it's hard enough to catch punts as it is. I have a terrible time with it. But LeJounte's done, he's put in the countless hours of work over the OTAs and training camp. And, I honestly – I feel like I'm a broken record here, but I just can't wait for him to get the ball in his hands. Like, I hope they give him an opportunity to get a return and he could make something happen because that guy's electric with the ball in his hands, and he's going to do some really special things, I think.
Are Tyler and Jordan keeping you young? I know with you being the veteran, are you learning things about how 20-ish year olds go about the world, all the new lingos, or are they keeping you young?
They definitely are. They we find ways to occupy ourselves during the day and play some video games and do all that stuff. And we're all in similar phases of life. They're both getting married next year. I'm obviously married with 2 kids, so tough. I'm a little bit further along than they are. But at the end of the day, we're all the same. Like we're basically best friends at this point. Like we're together all the time, and it's a lot of fun to be around them, and it's been a nice little change up for us, and I've really enjoyed our time together so far.
What are the video games of choice? What do you guys play?
I'm about to say, I need your gamer tag, man.
Oh well, at work we play the Nintendo Switch, so we play. We started training camp with Mario Golf, and now we're on Super Smash Bros. So we have an epic.
Oh, wow.
We do an offensive line versus special teams every day, and we've been getting our butts handed to us lately. So hopefully we can turn it around. And it's bad because we spend a lot of time playing the video.
Practicing.
Those guys are doing walkthrough and meetings, and we're just playing, and then they come in and kick our butts. So we're working on it.
Who on the O-line? Who represents the O-line in that game?
Andrew Voorhees is really good. Charlie always sides with the O-line. Charlie Kolar is really good. Obviously, Linderbaum's in there. Roger Rosengarten's pretty good. When we get Pat Ricard on our team, he's probably the best at Smash Bros. So he whenever we do 4v4, Pat's with the specialists, and we tend to dominate because he's so good.
He's good. Oh, nice. That's good.
Let me ask you this: with the facilities, obviously you're talking like upgrades and looking really nice. How has it been for you when it comes to those said upgrades at the facility?
I love it. I love, we got the whole new aquatic center. We got the lap pool in there. We have our sports scientist that leads, I don't want to call it aerobics, but it's like post-practice recovery in the pool. I think that's a great tool for us to use. We tend to do it on road trips if it's like a long trip. Like last year we went to LA, or this year when we were in Dallas. After a long flight, get in the pool and get moving, with less than 100% of your body weight. And I think it's great to have that. We got, the tubs that we have in there. They're ginormous now. And we got multiple saunas in there and steam rooms and all that. Excuse me. We have all that stuff that just is going to help us, prepare. Everybody has their own routine. And, I think it's individualized there. But for the most part, man, it's been fantastic. Like I get a lot of time in there because we only have certain meetings. So we have a lot of free time during the day, and we're able to utilize that stuff on a daily basis to really help us get ready to go and help us recover post-practice and all that. So I think it's just going to be an added resource to the immense resources that we already have, and it's only going to make us better.
I don't think I've asked you about the Michael Phelps thing, speaking of the aquatic center and everything, and how they, Marlon and Kyle and all those guys, and it worked, and you guys went to Loyola and did that. How was that? I mean, that must have been super cool.
Yeah, dude, shout out to those guys for making that video and getting Michael Phelps on, because that was something special, man. I mean, to see the greatest Olympian to ever walk this earth in real life watching him swim, like when we came into the pool in Loyola, we were going to the locker room to get dressed, and he's just doing laps, man. You can't, like when you watch on TV, it just doesn't do it justice because everybody's moving at the same pace, you know? And it's just like I was talking to one of my buddies after that doesn't play on the team, and I was like, man, it was just majestic watching him swim. Like it was a thing of beauty.
That's awesome.
And then we got to race, and I ended up, me and Pat Ricard ended up showing out, being the fastest swimmers on the team. So
Let's go.
It was a big little moment for me and Pat because nobody expected the big guys to be able to swim.
Yeah.
I would say me, him, and Ronnie Stanley were the best swimmers, and
Wow.
we
That
got to do some.
on y'all.
Yes, we got to do some races with Michael Phelps. Got to really hang out and spend time with him. We got to work with the Boys and Girls Club there, and then we got to work with Michael Phelps Foundation. So that was a great event, man. And I huge thanks to him for giving us his time and really teaching. Some guys really learned, like Big Trav went from like basically learning how to swim in the shallow end with Michael and his team to he was jumping off the diving board in the deep end at the end of it.
Awesome.
So like it was just such a cool experience, and literally once in a lifetime. And so I was just ecstatic to be able to do that.
I can't swim for nothing.
You should have been there, man.
I know.
What cracks me up is I, like you, was sitting there, Ravens game. Well, I was a part of the Ravens radio broadcast. I think it was 2011 or 12, and he was on the sideline, and I had my kids on the sideline with me, and I'm like, guys, look, there's Michael Phelps. So then they're like, Dad, you got to take a picture. I was like, okay. So I'm like sitting like, hey, Michael, oh my God, can I dress my? I was like, no.
Yeah.
Michael.
No. I'm a huge fan of yours. I was like, oh my God. So here I am fanboying. I get a cool picture with my kids. It's part of the cool kids club there for a hot second. You know how teenagers are. You kind of get in the club and then all of a sudden they kick you out. But yeah, it's fun and funny how big of a Ravens fan he really is and how into it as far as I know, clearly we all are appreciative of greatness. Clearly you've defined yourself from the less than 1% of the population to make it at this level, then to sustain at this level. So we got to give you, Nick, your flowers and being able to do what others cannot. But yeah, at the same time, it is cool when you get a chance to kind of fanboy and recognize others in their respective sports and their greatness.
Yeah, it was something special, man. That guy, we raced him, and he won by, it had to be 5 seconds. And the coach over there was like, yeah, he was probably going at like 30% speed. I was like,
wow.
It was like, it literally was like it looked like he was just going on a leisurely stroll. Like the way he was like swimming. We were doing freestyle. He probably only paddled like 4 times the whole length of the pool. It was unbelievable watching him. And, it's just one of those things that I think I'll remember forever.
That's so dope. That is so dope. Okay, well, we got to close the show, but before we do, I want to get predictions from the KO and Q. I won't put you through it, Nick, unless you want to be bulletin board material. But KO, what's your predictions for the game?
I think this will be a hard-fought one. I think that the Ravens will go out there with a vengeance, and Buffalo's a really good team. We saw that in the 2 games they played last season. I think they're going to win. I'm going to go 31-28, and maybe special teams will have something to do with it at the end. Who knows?
It's interesting after looking at the game while we're on the show with furrowed brow, doing my homework. I'm a little bit ticked off that, from a divisional round playoff aspect of things, Lamar, Derrick Henry, and Mark Andrews really struggled offensively. There were some plays that were made for sure, but I think if you were to see the entirety of the game, they would say that's not like us. I think at the same time, defensively, you would also say there were guys that were not really playing up to their level. I think it has fueled their fire throughout this offseason. It has given them an opportunity to kind of reset themselves and recognize that windows in the NFL do not stay open very long. if this is the Ravens year, and I believe we're going to road trip out to San Francisco, of course, Nick's going to be flying. I'm sure Mr.
First class.
busting out that 747 jumbo jet. That's okay, because we're going to go through Kansas City, and we're going to have a nice, good old ribeye, medium rare, as we go ahead and clean our teeth and keep on driving as the Kansas City Chiefs are sitting at home. With that said, though, this is it. Tyler Loop is going to have a day. At the same time, we also know the offense is going to have a day. Defense is going to be standing up. Zio is going to have his boys ready. The scheme is going to be locked in. Todd Monken in his third iteration of the offense. It's going to be one of those games. Yes, we recognize Bills Mafia. Yes, we recognize the Bills in general are a formidable team. So we're not going to say it's going to be a blowout, but I'm for sure not going to be saying it's going to be close. I think it's going to be the Ravens by 10, and in the fourth quarter, y'all going to be sitting back, and all of a sudden Nick going to just look over at the camera and go, yeah, thumbs up.
That's hilarious.
Nick, since we're not putting you in the prediction business, is there a message that you have before the game on Sunday? Anything you're feeling personally, or anything the team is feeling that you have?
I think it's going to be a good game, and I'm excited to get out there and have these young guys, on special teams. Personally, we got a lot of young guys. It's going to be, some in their first action, some of them rolling into their second season. A lot of guys are going to step up that maybe weren't in that leadership role in the prior years. So I'm expecting a lot of good things from some of these guys. And, I think for the most part, all we got to do is stick to our fundamentals and do what we've been doing this whole training camp all the way through the preseason. And we're going to have it's going to be a great game.
That is awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to it. Much appreciated, Nick, for joining us. Be careful getting over there to Buffalo Bills Stadium, Buffalo, New York. Get some Buffalo wings and enjoy the festivities prior to the game. I'm sure a lot of Ravens fans will be there cheering you on. Again, thanks so much for joining us. I know the Eagles-Cowboys game is going on right now, so make sure you go ahead and tune in. I think Jalen Carter got actually ejected for
spitting on Dak Prescott.
Yeah, which is crazy. Yeah, so interesting start to the NFL season. We'll wrap Sunday up with Ravens-Bills. Again, thank you guys so much for joining us. We'll be back for a post-game show following the Ravens beatdown over the Buffalo Bills, in my opinion. And we'll see you guys then. Thank you guys so much for joining us, and we will see you on Sunday.